we find in the book of Exodus, in the 20th chapter, what we call the Ten Commandments. First of all, it doesn't tell us that there are 10. It just says, and God spoke all of these words. So it wasn't in the Bible that it says there are 10 and only 10 commandments. But in order to teach, especially little ones like you, what the Word of God says, way, way back when nobody except for the church had Bibles, because Bibles were super expensive to copy. And so ordinary people just wouldn't have Bibles in their homes. So you had to go and listen very carefully and then memorize what you heard in church so that you could take that back. So that's why we're very careful in our teaching and try to help you remember what the words of the Bible are. So in trying to help people remember that part of the Bible where God says, I am the Lord your God, and you shall have no other gods before me, or thou shalt have no other gods before me. We started counting them as 10 just because then you could help to remember that, okay, there's 10 words or 10 sayings that we want to remember. Now, when we look in Exodus chapter 20, because that's where in the Bible we find these, you'll find that the very first one says, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And then right after that, it starts talking about how you should make no, in the King James it said graven images. In other words, don't make any idols. You know what an idol is? Little statues. Or
a statue like a ball.
Yes, like ball, like a golden calf and things like that. So at one time, that was considered to be 2 separate commandments. So the first one, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And then the second one was, you shall not make any graven images. Don't make any idols. Later on, it was realized that those 2 are really saying the same thing. When it says, you shall have no other gods, it means don't make any of these statues of Baal or an Ashtoreth pole or anything like that.
Ashtoreth pole?
Yeah, an Ashtoreth pole. It was another idol for a different false god that the people would sometimes use.
What did it look like?
It looked like a pole. Just a pole. Almost like, do you know what a totem pole is? Okay. It's like taking a little log, but not laying it down like this, but putting it up and then carving into it little faces or little depictions of animals and things. And so it was a way of, again, worshiping a god that really isn't a god. But the making of idols is the same thing as saying don't have any other gods. So you will find some old lists that says, number 1, you shall have no other gods. And then number 2, don't make any graven images. And then number 3 is, thou shalt not misuse the name of the Lord thy God, or you shall not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. And then number 4 is about the keeping the Sabbath. So much, much later, when Christians realize that when you say, you shall have no other gods, that means automatically, well, of course we wouldn't make any idols, right? Because there is no other God than God. So all of that then became just part of the first commandment. And then the second commandment then became about using God's name in the proper way. And the third commandment became remembering the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And the fourth commandment became about honoring our fathers and our mothers. So it's the same commandments, it's the same Word of God, it's just a different way of numbering them and remembering them so that we can always have it in our minds and on our hearts, and especially so that we can live according to that Word of God.